What's up, guys? Pete with Pete Tech. Check out what I got behind me. You guys know this car. FRS or BRZ, same platform. And how fitting that I got a free t-shirt from, shout out to Steve Mode 62 on Instagram. I got this free shirt, Full Blown Motorsports. You probably have seen this car maybe on one other video, maybe not even that. I don't know, can't remember if I posted it or not. But this right here is an FRS race car. Now, you guys might go, oh, race car. Well, I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is a fully caged, race-ready FRS. Check it out. Look at this thing. You guys thought I was messing with you. So, this is my buddy Brandon's car. And he uses this as a dedicated track car. It is filthy. You guys will notice that. It's absolutely filthy. And no, these are not the wheels that go on the track. These are just to get it from point A to point B. They'd be a little big for the track. A little narrow too. But yeah, check this out, you guys. Pretty clean. And when I say pretty clean, I mean it's really clean. Like, this thing is nice. So, he drove this thing on the street 35 miles to get it up to my place. He lives in a city that's much further south than me. But he didn't trailer it. He just drives it on the street. So, I guess you could say street car, race car, same kind of thing. I'll show you what's going on under the hood. It's nothing too fancy. So this is kind of as stock as it gets. You know, it's got an intake on it. But when it comes to brakes and suspension, he kind of balled out on this thing. It's got upgraded brakes, upgraded suspension all the way around, upgraded arms. So the reason I have the car is we're going to be doing race prep, basically getting it ready to go for the race season. And I figured this would be a good idea to make a video for you guys out there. Maybe you guys have a car you want to take out on the track. Maybe you want to know of, like, hey, what's a good checklist or what's a good strategy for checking the car over to make sure it's safe to bring on the track. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this party started. We're going to strip all the wheels off. We're going to start going through the suspension. I'm actually, in this video, I'm going to utilize this whiteboard for you guys. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to make you a checklist. Well, and myself. Make you and myself a checklist for it. So it doesn't really got to be said, but we at least got to start with the basics. You're going to see if there's any play in any of the suspension components. Those are kind of basic items, but still want to check. So we got all the suspension checked out. There's nothing that's loose. There's no play in anything. So I'm going to go ahead and strip off all the wheels. We're going to check out all the brake pads, linings. We're going to have access to all that stuff. Then we also have access to, with the wheel out of the way, we can check the ball joints, lower ball joints, make sure everything's tight. On this particular one, I'm replacing all the bearings, so I'm going to have to pull everything off anyways. Well, now that we got all those tires and wheels out of the way, this is where you're going to want to come in and check out the brake pads. So one of the things to keep in mind here, and you might not, I should back up, you might not have a caliper set up where you can just look right through, 4-pot, 6-pot, 8-pot, all the big calipers for track use. If you don't have a big brake kit, I'd recommend it. This one actually has just an upgraded pad set, stock rears. We're going to be doing those probably this year. which these, they're a little bit harder to see. But you can still peek through, obviously, and get a measurement on these. What you're looking for isn't actually just, does it have enough pad? And I'll show you what I mean. One of the things you want to look for is how much pad do I have on this side versus how much pad do I have on that side, because that's going to tell you based on how much time you got on those pads, if you're progressively wearing one side versus the other. Maybe you got slide pins that are stuck, maybe you got a pad that's hanging up. Being that there's tons of pad life on there, I'm going to tell them, hey, these look great, we don't need to do anything with them. Now if they're past this point, okay, if they're past the point where they have the gaps and it's just flat pad, replace them. You do not, on track cars, you do not wait until the brakes are 40%, 30%, whatever they may be. You keep a 80 to 100% pad depth on there at all times, because all it takes is you to have a lot of fun on one track day, get those brakes super, super hot, and I mean, you could shoot through half a brake pad in a day easy. And that's not really a big deal. It's not a safety issue, but what it can do is completely destroy your rotors for one, or for two, hurt the calipers because you're hyperextending them. So I'm pausing here because I want you guys to always check your ball joints. Zero play on this side, so we're gonna go and check the other side. And while we're at it, always check your control arm bushings. Sorry about the LED. Doesn't like the camera. You know, when you're in this area, especially on a car that's going on the track, you gotta check everything. Steering linkages is probably one of the most important. Just because you shake it down, you feel nothing. Always make sure your jam nuts are tight. Make sure there's no play anywhere else. Yeah, I would say we're gonna clean this bore out here and get our new bearing installed. We're gonna torque the bearing bolts and we'll get the new bearings installed. We're gonna clean the brakes up, so we're just gonna spray it down with brake cleaner, get those pads cleaned up a little bit, and then throw it right back on. A little tip for you guys that are trying to clean these out. You might not have this problem in the south, but we do in the north for sure, which is this getting all rusted out. So find a brush that barely fits, wire wheel. Another thing too, guys, make sure you get a quality bearing. This is an SKF. As far as aftermarket goes, this is as good as it's going to get. It's close to OE. OE is probably going to be your best, but it's also going to be extremely expensive. And if your bearing does not just float around in here, don't put it in, because if you're using these bolts to drive the bearing in, when everything gets hot, it's going to swell and it's going to put extra tension on the inside of that cage, and it's going to heat up the bearings faster. So you want to make sure that's good fitment. Oh yeah, one more thing. Always torque your caliper bolts. Next up, we got rear wheel bearings. So these, a little bit more of a pain, not too bad. It's pretty easy to do bearings on these guys. Put a little bit of WD in there. Make sure the e-brake is set. Beautiful. That's what I'm talking about. Easy peasy, nothing seized on it. I love it. So because this is a regular caliper with sliders on it, I'm going to take the entire caliper off. I'm going to set it over here. Nice. Just stays there. I like that. And then I think these are 14s as well. Easy. Put 0 dents in it. All rubber. So actually, I wanted to show you guys this. So see all this right here? It's all grease. Well, hey, look at the back of this. So that bearing was smoked. See, this is what happens under heavy track abuse. I shouldn't say track abuse, track use. I mean, you do abuse the car when you're on the track. The manufacturers didn't actually design them for that, believe it or not. But the bearing still feels okay. But all the grease was starting to leak out. Not all, but a lot of it. And then look what else happens. It actually starts to coat your wheel speed sensor, which will eventually, you get enough of it built up on there, and it will start to cause signal issues. So what I'm going to do, this axle gets moved. We're going to clean this all up. See all that crap on the inside? Clean this all up. We're going to grab this. We're going to clean this all up as well. And then we'll get our new bearings on there. While you're in here, you want to go ahead and check the ball joints. Check all your linkages. Squeeze them this way, wiggle that way. Check your bushings. I mean, I just was in this area back here because we did coilovers not too long ago. So I'm familiar with the condition of everything, but you always want to check, so. Alright guys, come with me. I want to show you something. Here's what we're going to show you. Alright, so as you can tell, these are the brake pads. What do you guys notice here? These are rear brakes, excuse me. What do you notice here? We got, I don't know, we'll call that 6, 7 mil. And then what do we got on this side? But 3 to 4 mil is probably what I would call that. Not only that, if you look closely, I don't know if the camera is going to pick that. There we go. If you look closely, do you see those cracks? So the cracks are kind of normal. What's not normal is to have this much brake on this side, this much brake on this side. So what does that tell us? It tells us a couple different things. One, we should check the wheel bearings, because if you get a bearing that is moving, what's going to happen? It's going to pump way more heat into the brake assembly, and it's going to, therefore, heat crack the pad. It's going to have lower pad life. The other thing we might want to check is the calipers, as far as the caliper effort that it takes to push the piston back in. We could have a brake line on that caliper that is got a restriction or is starting to collapse and it's pushing fluid and then holding it. But one of the fastest ways to slow you down on the track is if you have brake issues. You have something hanging or not releasing or whatever it might be. The other thing that will do is it will cause unequal braking, which makes the car way harder to predict when you get into the corners. So what we're gonna do is, I'll pull these back out. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna play around with these calipers and see. There could be something going on here. May or may not be. As far as the lines, they're braided lines. I doubt we're running into a collapsed hose. And what we definitely wouldn't be willing to do is we're definitely not going to replace one caliper. Definitely not the way we're going to do it. So what we might do is just replace both rear calipers on it, just to be safe. Back to the pads. We're going to have to replace these guys. So we're going to put this on pause for right now. What's up, guys? Another day here. Back with the Subaru, or I'm sorry, the Toyota. Same thing. Toyota, Scion, Subaru, whatever. Right now we're jumping into kind of the last of it here before we give it the final once-over to get it track approved. But we're going to replace the calipers. And here's the super high quality parts right here from yours truly, O'Reilly Auto Parts. We're just running some cheap calipers. This thing's probably going to get calipers once a season, is my guess. I'm not 100% sure on that, but check these out, you guys. These are, I'll show you right here. These are the Carbotex. These are probably one of the few pads that I would say they are actually advertised as track use. They come with, obviously, bedding material on them, which is nice. But check out these guys. These are thick. Look at these. Super nice packaging, though. If you saw the box they came in, I guess you guys didn't see it, but these are the pads. Nothing much to them. No fancy, no gimmicks. We're going to get them installed in these calipers, get them on the car, get them bled, and then I'm going to do a little patch job on this bumper. We're going to do a little zip tie stitching. And you're probably going to hear my kids rolling around because look at you, almost pedaling. And then there's the middle child, and then the youngest he's floating around somewhere. So we're going to get rocking and rolling. Alright, so I'm just going to give you guys a little tip here. One of the things you want to absolutely make sure you do when you're setting these up is, see how easily these move? You want to make sure that the pads move extremely easy. You do not want to set up, especially on a track car, something where you're just going to pump tons of heat into it. You don't want something where the pads are going to heat up, they're going to expand, and then they're going to jam in the bracket, and they're not going to want to move freely on this hardware. So for one, you got to make sure your hardware is nice and tight, but for two, you need to make sure, like, look at this, takes no effort whatsoever. You can move these around, the pinky even. It's hard to demonstrate that on a video, but just make sure they move freely. Look at these pads. These are some thick boys right here. Look at this. But yeah, we're going to get this together. I'm going to go ahead and rip these off. Obviously, we're going to have to re-bleed. Got stainless line on there, so we'll get that knocked out. As long as that pedal feels tight. Tell me what you think of race seats.
Not good for a pregnant woman.
So as promised, I wanted to show you guys a copy of a good checklist when you're going over race car prep. This is the Nord Stern. This is actually from the Porsche Club of America. I had to fill this out on the car, basically to certify the car is track ready, track safe. So if you guys are looking for an example, take a screenshot of this. This will be exactly what you're looking for.